use the mic.
Can you hear me if I talk like this?
Use the mic, please.
Mic is better.
Okay, that's fine. We'll just use the mic. I don't generally do that, but we can do that. That's fine. Like it was just said, my name is Major Anderson. I am an emergency services pilot and the squadron commander of the 153rd Squadron right here in Madison. And the Civil Air Patrol is the auxiliary to the United States Air Force. We've been around since about World War II, a little before that actually. And we're tasked primarily with three main tasks. Number one, we've got what they call cadet programs, and we take students who are 12 to 18, and that's kind of a regimented program where we teach them some discipline, we teach them how to focus on the task at hand, they can learn how to fly a plane, things like that. We're not trying to recruit, we're just trying to give them the tools to develop the potential that they have and be the most that they can be. And a lot of times, children that age need some help. So that's one thing we do. The second task is what we call aerospace education. That kind of goes hand in hand with cadet programs. But we work with the cadets, and we're also kind of in the community working on a number of things as well. And the third thing that we're tasked with is called emergency services, and that's where I'm going to spend the bulk of my time talking here. We have 13 planes scattered around the United States, around the Wisconsin. One of them here is in Madison at our squadron. Our squadron is about 70 people, so we're not small. We're required to, well, first of all, I should say, we're not paid anything for this. We are civilian volunteers. They call us professional volunteers. So there's no pay, there's no benefits. In fact, it costs us because we have to pay for our own training and we have to requalify for our job every year. So it's kind of a big deal. We take kind of pride in what we're doing. It's kind of a special group of people that are willing to do that and to do it for nothing. But the tasks that we have, first of all, with emergency services, you would say the first thing that comes to mind is search and rescue. And if somebody takes off and files a flight plan here and takes off and never arrives, we're the ones that get called to go find out what happened to them, where'd they go, did they need help? Search and rescue, you wouldn't think that'd be a big deal, but it actually is in Wisconsin because every year there's that big fly-in Oshkosh, and that's the biggest, and that's the busiest airport in the world for that week. And something always happens every year. So that is a big deal. Because of that, they've given us more assets than other states have, and because of that, they expect more from us. So they watch us. That happens a lot. Search and rescue. ELTs, if every single aircraft has got what they call an emergency locator transmitter. And sometimes if you land a little too hard or something, it'll go off, or you do crash, it does go off. It's supposed to go off on impact. And that sends out a signal, gets picked up by an Air Force satellite, and then they try to figure out exactly where it is, and they send us out to go find it. So that's kind of sporadic, but that happens every so often. We also perform what they call anti-terrorism missions with the Department of Homeland Security. And I can't talk a whole lot about security things with anti-terrorism, but one thing they do want us to talk about with the public is, for example, the 115th Fighter Unit right here in Madison. In fact, we're in the same base as they are. They're the ones that fly the F-16s. And they are charged with the defense of this nation in Wisconsin. And they have, one of the things they have to do is go out and practice intercepting low, slow-flying aircraft. So a couple times a month we go up and get shot down by them. We get to be the targets. But you would think it's kind of fun, but it's actually kind of stressful because, well, we're cruising at about 120 knots, something like that. The stall speed on an F-16 is about 180 knots. So we're going about 70 miles an hour slower than the slowest speed they can fly at. So they have to kind of slow down. And of course, when you start going slow, your controls get all mushy and you're not precise. And it is a big deal for them, and they have to practice it. And you start going on playing cat and mouse with F-16s in clouds, and yeah, things can go wrong really quick. So you kind of need to know what you're doing. So we do that quite a bit too. It's fun, sort of. It's fun and stressful, I guess I'll put it that way. But when you got to do it, and you get up in the morning and look at my wife and say, I'm gonna go get shot down today, but I'll be home for dinner. And she's like, fine, just don't be late and bring milk. So yes, dear, it is what it is. So we do those things, and one other thing, we do a whole myriad of things. I mean, we will fly human tissue or organ transplant if necessary. We'll go get it. We'll go do that if they need us to. Essentially, disaster relief too is the other thing that I really wanted to talk about and spend time on. And what we do is we're experts in what they call photographic aerial reconnaissance interpretation. Whenever there's a natural disaster, anything like that, you know, tornado, flood, hurricane, earthquake, whatever, the first thing they do is they send us up there. We survey the area, try to figure out what is the extent of the damage. That's what the questions we're answering. So what is the extent of the damage? How much aid do they need? What kind of aid do they need? And how we're going to get it there? That's how you try to figure it out from the air. And, you know, we don't have a whole lot of disasters around here. We are a federal asset. You know, I'm tasked with, we work with Wisconsin Emergency Management, but we're federal, and I think you all know about what happened down in Texas in August. You know, we had Hurricane Harvey, and we did get sent down there to help, and we spent a week there. And again, not a week going to Texas probably doesn't sound like too much, but you gotta remember we're civilian volunteers, you know. Walked away from my family and my job to go down there and help. And how that all unfolded was, I think it was like the 17th of August, something like that, the hurricane hit, and then it was around for a couple days, and you know, there were 16-foot seawalls and 130-mile-an-hour sustained winds and 40 inches of rain, so it did a whole hell of a lot of damage. And I got a call on a Monday afternoon, and they said, well, what is your availability to help? And I said, well, Madison Squadron is available and willing to assist as needed. Didn't think I'd hear much more, but then Wednesday night I got a call again, and they said, well, you said you could go, we need you to go. You got 24 hours to take your plane and report for duty in San Marcos, Texas. So, you know, first thing, I think about my family, get some money. You know, it takes us pretty much a day to get down there with our plane, so we did that. And what we were supposed to be doing, actually, I'll talk a little bit about that, but the whole area was about 23,000 square miles of damage down there. There's 225 miles of coastline, went roughly from Beaumont, Texas to give or take Corpus Christi, something like that. And it goes inward, they said, for about 90 miles. So that's about, do your math, that's about 23,000 square miles. I didn't notice much damage at all till we were about 70 miles out. So between 70 and 90, I didn't see it, but they said it was there. And what they did is, Civil Air Patrol, we had 34 states sent planes down there. Wisconsin obviously was one of them, we were one that did that, to fly these missions, and we had, within that 23,000 square mile area, on any given day for that week, we had about 30 planes in the air. And it is kind of the issues that they were facing, well, initially we were sent down there to do this photographic aerial reconnaissance, but we got retasked because we had some capabilities with things that they needed help with because their infrastructure had broken down. There's good people in Texas, but the people that could do that job were displaced and they lost their homes and they just couldn't help. They weren't available to do that. The issues that we were facing when we got down there is you've got 30 planes well within that area all flying around, and you go down to about 1,000 feet above the air to do your photographic missions. And once you drop down to about 1,000 feet, you don't have much in terms of range on your radio transmitter to stay in touch with the incident commander, and you need to have that contact. There's a lot of things going on. There was all kinds of emergency vehicles in the area. You know, the Coast Guard was there, the Navy was there, the Army was there, the Marines were there. I mean, everybody was there. All kinds of FEMA people. I've never seen such busy airspace in my life. And with our 30 planes, it was really, really important that we stay in contact with them because, you know, there's flooding areas. They're going to have to report what they see. They can see where some people need help. You have to mark that. You can't wait till you get back. You got to tell them. They want to know. It's kind of dangerous being 1,000 feet above the air. They want to know everybody's safe. They want to know what's going on. They want regular updates of what's going on, and they also have to retask people and divert them from one area to another. One of the things that happened when we were down there, and it actually happened twice that week, was President Trump came in with Air Force One. Well, again, that's another problem because when you're out flying around and Air Force One comes around, nobody can be any closer than 20 miles to Air Force One. You have to stay away from them. If you get closer, you will get intercepted by F-16s. And it's very, very unpleasant. You don't ever want to do that. That's the law. Everybody has to stay away. Well, that wouldn't be all that hard to do, except they don't tell you exactly where he's coming and when he's coming, and they just don't announce those things until he's there for security reasons. You just know he's coming, you don't know from which direction. All of a sudden we'll hear, okay, Air Force One is 100 miles out, he's going to be here in 10 minutes, and get your planes out of there, move them around, we got tasks around. Well, that was a problem because they couldn't maintain radio contact with all these aircraft that we had out there. And the photographer that I had on my team was actually a communication specialist, so we got tasked to help them with their communications issues, and that's what we worked on for the week, and we solved them. Basically what we did is we got some radio repeater units from the Texas Air National Guard. We mounted them in our plane, and we had 2 planes that we did for that. So one from Wisconsin, I think the other was from Colorado, South Dakota, I can't remember. But we had a couple people helping us with that. And basically what we did is we would be on station. We'd fly what they call the hybrid mission. So we were, throughout that whole 23,000 square mile area, we had 2 planes that we would put in orbit at 10,000 feet. And with that, we could maintain contact with the lower people that were doing the photographic missions and so forth, and we could stay in touch with everybody. So that was a whole week of pretty tough flying, a very, very difficult. As far as what I personally witnessed, about 70 miles outside of the coast, there's a lot of farms, ranches, that kind of thing, a lot of gravel roads. You'd start to see flooding in no-line areas, and this was 10 days, 2 weeks after the hurricane. But there'd be, sections of gravel road that maybe it would wash out for 30 or 40 feet, and it would be down 5 or 6 feet deep. I mean, just huge gullies. The roads are just gone. You can't traverse that with a pickup or four-wheel drive or anything. You can't hardly get around. That's what I noticed, and then you would get closer and closer, and you'd see more and more flooding. And then eventually it would get to the point where it was just all flooding and then ocean. And that was just it. The whole sections of the coast were just gone. And that's going to be with them for a long time. I wish I could show you some pictures, but all the pictures that were taken are U.S. government property, so I'm not allowed to disseminate those. They paid for them. That's our job. We provide pictures, we give them to them. We're not allowed to post them or use them for anything else. I'm sure there's probably some FEMA people here on various websites and stuff is posted, but that's what I did notice. It was, some things were fairly traumatic. One day we came in and had to get fuel in Beaumont, so we went down to the airport in Beaumont. Very, very busy trying to get in and out of there. It was like a 30-minute stack of planes trying to be in sequence to come in. But that happened to be the day that they were evacuating babies out of the NICU there. And that was very hard to see. So a lot of distraught parents, very, very, very tough. But, we did our job. Everything went like it should. I don't want to get too emotional about that, but flying around Houston, Houston is a huge city. It's one of the largest metropolitan areas in the U.S. Get down around dusk, it was really surreal because there were just huge sections of the city that had no power. And you could tell, it was just dark. It was just really, really something you don't generally see. Trying to think if there's probably some things I missed. But as a general rule, that's kind of what happened. We live in a very uncertain world. The only thing I can tell you with any degree of certainty at all is, as commander of this squadron, whatever the Air Force wants to see from us here in Madison is exactly what's going to happen. So, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Or yeah?
I was just curious, do you own your own planes and then volunteer to use them, or does the organization own the planes jointly, or how does that work?
They're provided by the Air Force. They're actually specially modified Cessna 182s and Gippsland Air.
Okay, so all CAP groups all around the country all pretty much get the same equipment then?
Pretty much. I mean, there's some other equipment up in Alaska. There are some regional differences, but around most of the continental U.S., it's primarily specially modified Cessnas for the Air Force. And I think there's about 850 of them all told around the country. And like I said, 13 are here in Wisconsin and 1 here in Madison. So, anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Major Anderson. A lot of what we deal with when it comes to disasters, a lot of it depends on volunteers. And there's a great example of folks that are volunteering their time, their resources to help out others in need. You know, hopefully we don't have a situation like a Houston or a Hurricane Maria that strikes this part of the country. But it's nice to know that when those things happen, the volunteers, like Civil Air Patrol. So I was thinking National Guard, but the Civil Air Patrol, volunteers like yourself, that really makes a big difference when it comes to not only preparing for disasters, but also after disaster and the cleanup and the rescue and the search and all that. Those are the people that we turn to in the times of need. So our last speaker is a familiar face to those of you who have come to this conference before, Dr. Lee Orff from the UW. And these are always interesting videos that he shows because he researches severe thunderstorms and tornadoes, but from a computer standpoint, and being able to model that. And this is where the science is going. You know, it's one thing to have video representation and pictures. I mean, that all helps, but we have to get to the point to where we can understand these storms at as small a scale as possible to be able to predict them and predict what they're going to do in the future. And a lot of what Dr. Orff has been doing is making its way from the research stage into where we're going eventually when it comes to the warning and forecast process. So, Dr. Orff.